हेलो फ्रेंड्स, केजी क्लासेस में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम आपको अल्फ्रेड लॉर्ड टेनिसन के लॉन्ग आंसर के बारे में बताएंगे। क्वेश्चन है, गिव द क्रिटिकल एप्रिसिएशन ऑफ द पोएम मार्टर द ऑथर। आंसर है हेडिंग फर्स्ट, इंट्रोडक्शन। मार्टर द ऑथर इज वन ऑफ टेनिसन्स मोस्ट ब्यूटीफुल पोएम्स. It deals with a legend of King Arthur of England. It was first published in 1842 and later incorporated in The Passing of Arthur, the last books of the Adalices of the King, the Arthurian legend. King Arthur was a legendary English chieftain who lived about the 15th century AD. Some critics are of the opinion that there was no such king. However, modern researchers have shown that there was a ruler, Arthur or Artus, who reigned in the 6th century over tribes inhabiting the old division of Britain known as Cumbria and Strathclyde. He had to fight against the Saxons from the east, the Picts and Scots from the north during the 5th or 6th century that followed by gradual secession of fabulous stories. Arthur became a legendary figure who became the subject of many romantic poems. Medieval chivalry transformed the historical figure into an ideal of royal wisdom and knightly prowess. Romantic tales of love and suffering intermingled, and Arthur and his exploit became a favorite hunting ground for romance writers in England, Wales, France, and Germany from the 11th to the 15th century, having an evolution of thoughts. Martyr, the author, gives an account of the passing away of Arthur in the Battle of Lyonnais. Arthur's several knights were either defeated or killed. The king himself was fatally wounded. Sir Bedivere carried the wounded king to a nearby chapel. When the king lost hope of surviving, he ordered the knight to throw his sword Excalibur into a nearby lake. This he wants because the sword was given to him by a mysterious hand out of this lake. Sir Bedivere took the sword, but looking at it, he did not throw it away and concealed it among water reeds. When the knight returned, Arthur knew the truth, so he ordered him to go again and carry out his orders. The knights once again went to the lake, but the jeweled hilt tempted him, so he decided to keep the sword as a memorial of the great king and once again hid it. Once again the king knew the truth and rebuking Sir Bedivere, he ordered him to perform his duty. This time the knights went to the lake and threw the sword into the lake, but before it fell into the lake, a hand rose out of the water and drew it in. Sir Bedivere reported the dying king about the deed. At the request of the king, the knight brought him on his back towards the lake. Sir Bedivere felt sad, for the old glorious times were gone. His old companions were now no more. He would not be able to adjust in new circumstances. But the wise King Arthur consoled the knights that change is the order of life. The new always replaces the old, so he must not lament, rather he should pray for his soul, for much can be achieved through prayer. Finally, the barge on which the king lay took him away, and the knight remained standing on the shore, having a pathos. The poem is full of pathos. The tragic end of King Arthur evokes sense of pity. Arthur was a valiant king, but now he lies wounded in a helpless state. Sir Bedivere's condition is also pathetic. His sense of loneliness at having been left, the sole survivor of the glorious round table, evokes sense of pity. The grief of the three Oscunes on seeing the wounded king is also moving. The scene of the final leaving of Arthur and Sir Bedivere being left alone is heart-touching, as is seen in the following lines. Long stood Sir Bedivere, revolving many memories, till the whole looked one black dot against the verge of dawn, and on the mere the belling died away. Next heading है medieval element. The story is medieval. The poet has successfully created the medieval atmosphere. As J.B. Steens remarks, the poem has all the medieval backdrop and scenery. The armed hills, the white Semite mystic wonderful, the brand Excalibur, etc. We get an idea of medieval chivalry, as there are references to the knights of the Roman table, the tournament, etc. The supernaturalism and mystery of the remote ages. Belief in magic and witchcraft is seen in the magic sword Excalibur and the magic hand that takes the sword into the lake. Heading a moral purpose. The poem is not without any moral purpose. Rob and Babs remarks in this connection. The Arthur herein depicted is no more mere reproduction of Mallory's chivalric hero, and the interest of the poem does not lie in its being a picture of old times, such as would please an antiquarian. Its purpose is to typify the continual struggle in man's heart between the lover and the higher instinct of his nature. Its shadows sense at bar with soul evil, fighting against good and overcoming it, but the triumph of evil is short-lived. Excalibur may indeed be cast away and banished from the earth, for in the moral as in the physical world, without change there can be no progress. But Arthur will come again, and new weapons from heaven will be given to the champion of truth is successive generation. The old faith that Arthur was not dead but would return healed of his wound to help mankind has its counterpart in modern optimism, which looks forward to the steady improvement of the human race and its advance towards higher and nobler condition. Question second. Give the critical appreciation of the poem Ring Out Wild Bells. Answer. Ring Out Wild Bells is a lyric in section C 106 in a memoriam. In this poem, the poet celebrates the new year with full enthusiasm. The poet wishes the new years to be the golden age where there will be no evil, when the bells of the first Christmas evening ring out, peace and good will prevail on the earth. As Stopford a brook summarizes, it bids the past die and the present and the future live. The sound of the bells is happy. They ring out of evil and ring in all good. They ring out the grief that saved his mind. They ring out his mournful rhyme, but they ring in the fuller minstrel who sings of the world that is to be, of the Christ who comes again. The personal has wholly perished. His own victory over sorrow has taught him the victory over sorrow that awaits the race, and the triumph of the hour sound nobly in the noble verse. On the occasion of the New Year's Eve, let the bells send out their peals to the wild sky, to the floating wood, and to the dim cold light. The old year is dying out this very night. Let the bells ring out the old year. Let the old go away and the new years be taken in. The happy bells should ring across the snow. The old year in passing out, let it go, let the false also be cast away and the true be brought in. Let the grief that tortures the mind be thrown away. It is the grief for those who are no longer alive. Let the hostility between the rich and the poor be ended, and let the whole mankind be awarded compensation for the injustice done to it. Let the outbound ideals be discarded, struggles of parties be also thrown out. Let some nobler models of life users in with sweet manners and pure laws. Let poverty, anxiety, sin, disloyal indifference of the people, all these come to a close. Let my sorrowful tunes also come to an end, giving place to the happy songs of the new year. False pride of social status and broad boast of high family as well as public propaganda and hatred should vanish away. In their place, love of truth and justice, love of public good should be established. Let the old forms of hideous diseases disappear with the old year. Let the mean lust of gold and money be got rid of. Let the old wars be forgotten and the thousands year of peace be established. Let the brave and free people come out, men with larger hearts and generous hands. Let the darkness of ignorance disappear and let the religious and moral values be instilled into the people in the new year. E. A. Greening Lamborn also makes the following comments on this poem. Our own disillusioned age reflects that church bells have been ringing for 2000 years without bringing these ideals any nearer, and ranks the lines with pulpit eloquence of glib but shallow curates. He proceeded further, blunt in his feudal tenures, records a character by which an estate in Berkshire was held on condition of the tenant presenting himself periodically before the king carrying two cocks and saying, "Here, my lord, be are two cocks which you shall have sometimes, but not now." On some such understanding, Tennyson presented these ideals to his contemporary. It must, however, be observed that, like most people, he believed in the force of prayer and in the ultimate triumph of good over evil, and in non-Christian countries also the custom of welcoming the new year is widely prevalent, and the welcome is ever accompanied by an earnest prayer. The poem thus has a universal appeal, and the Victorians rightly thought these stanzas to be of the finest in the memoriam. In the poem, the poet has used the rhyme patterns ABBA, but it is full of repetition. Words and phrases give an impression of rhetoric approach on the part of the poet. However, lyrics elements is not altogether absent. Thanks, best of luck.